Okay, this is going to be the hardest one for me, but I so rarely read this that I kind of want to do it tonight since it's my hometown. This is called A Day in the Life, and it's written in three parts. 1. Where's the boy? Sleeping inside the shack. He was up most of the night looking for us. The brakeman smiles, walks over to the door and peers in through the window at Chuck asleep on the floor. Must be pretty scary losing your partner on your first ride. Yeah, I'll say. Worked out fine, though. He knew enough to wait for us at the next division. Fred found him in an empty boxcar with an old Indian guy. The brakeman knew the whole story and had helped us all morning check empties on new trains that came through the yard, hoping Chuck would be on one of them. He was genuinely pleased that we had all hooked up again. Think I'll go inside and razz him a little, says the brakie. He looks over at Fred and I and winks, opens the screen door and lets it slam behind him. A few seconds later, oh yeah, his huge voice booming from the shack. Cops swarming the yard like flies to shit. Nah, it can't be me they want, comes Chuck's reply. I haven't done anything. It's you, all right. Red bandana, wearing overalls, carrying a brown paper sack and water jug. Chuck's up like a shot and out the door mumbling something about always being mistaken for someone he's not, and how this isn't the first time it's gotten him in trouble. His boots in one hand, blankets in the other. Yeah, they say you got some girl in trouble back in Iowa, and they got orders to bring you in. Chuck steps into the sunlight and stops dead in his tracks, still half asleep, but getting it. Fred lets off one of his ear-to-ear grins. The brakie starts giggling, and now Chuck really gets it. He drops his gear and stretches, big smile on his face. Fuck you guys, is all he says as he walks back in the shack. 2. It had been hot and sunny when we left the Minneapolis yards, but the weather turned on us a few miles east of Staples. Although the summer rain was a welcome relief from the grueling Midwest heat and helped keep the dust down in the gondola, we knew if we didn't change cars soon, it would mean a miserable wet night. Earlier, Fred had seen an empty boxcar down the train, so we decided to make the switch as soon as we stopped. By the time we reached Staples, the rain had turned to a fine drizzle that was invigorating and pleasant. We packed up when the train stopped, tossed our gear out the gone, and climbed down the ladder. We didn't know for sure how long the train would be in the yard, or even how far down the empty was, so we wasted no time in making for the boxcar. But before we had walked the length of 4 cars, the engines lurched forward, sending a crashing shudder down the train. Then slowly it began pulling out of the yard. At first we didn't worry too much about it. The train was nearly 2 miles long, and we figured it would take some time to pick up speed. Plus, we had now let the train bring the empty to us, saving ourselves a walk. But the train got a move on quick, and still there was no sign of our boxcar. In a matter of seconds, we could see there was no time left to be picky about what to ride, and started running with the train. There were a couple of gondolas coming up, and we wanted to be running full speed when they reached us, so boarding her would go smoothly. Fred was in front of me, and I watched him grab the ladder of the first gon that came by, and with one graceful hop, he was on. Then I caught hold of the next ladder and simply lifted my feet from the ground, the speed of the train pulling me on. I climbed halfway up and hurled my pack into the car when suddenly I heard Chuck yell, "I dropped the water jug!" And this is where the real trouble began. I'd found the jug in the St. Paul yards, and Chuck knew I wanted to keep it as a gift for a friend back home. So for this reason, he stopped to pick it up. Once he got the jug back and his running speed up again, it was too late. The train was moving too fast to catch. Fred had watched all this happening from the inside of the gon and got our gear together. If Chuck couldn't get on, we would have to get off. I climbed inside the gon, slung my pack over my shoulder. Then Fred headed down one ladder and I climbed down the other. By this time, the train was moving fast enough that we had to hang on tight to the rungs of the ladder. We both knew that if we tried to get off now, it would mean assholes over elbows through the gravel. Fred looked over at me from the other side of the gone and just shook his head. I leaned out from the ladder and watched Chuck grow smaller and smaller until finally he disappeared from sight altogether. And then the rain started up again. 3. Well, looky here, the shack's been turned into a hobo Hilton. I hear the brakeman laughing and open my eyes as he steps over me to get his clipboard off the desk. He's all grins and friendly. I sit up and stretch my arms. Oh, Christ, you wouldn't have believed it. I don't know about that. See, oh, I'm sorry. I hear the brakeman laughing and open my eyes as he steps over me to get his clipboard. He's all grins and friendly. Skeeters too much for you last night? I sit up and stretch my arms. Oh, Christ, you wouldn't have believed it. I don't know about that, he says. I've been working this yard 30 years now, and they can get a lot worse than this. Yeah, hope you don't mind us sleeping in here last night. It really saved our butts. I've never seen so many mosquitoes in my life. The brakeman laughs. No, I don't mind. Where are you boys headed? Fred here's headed back to San Francisco, and I'm going to Seattle. We lost our partner yesterday in Staples. I checked trains that stopped here last night, but he wasn't on any of them. The brakeman opens his thermos and pours Fred and me coffee and offers us a sandwich. Well, hell, I'm going to be switching cars around the yard today. I'll keep an eye out for him. What's he look like? 4. By mid-afternoon, we decided it was hopeless and made plans for leaving on the next train west. Chuck had been carrying the food in his pack when we lost him, so Fred decided to have one more look through the yard on his way to the store. I waited in the shack with our gear, and after an hour or so, walked outside to read in the afternoon sun. I was about to sit down when I heard someone yell my name. Down the tracks, I could see a figure waving a water jug in the air, and by God, it looked like Chuck. He'd spent a long night running around the yard looking for Fred and me, and now he was tired and needed some badly missed sleep. When he finished telling me the story of how he had heard Fred's voice outside the boxcar and how good it was to see him again, he went inside the shack and fell asleep. I stayed outside to read, and pretty soon I could see 2 more people coming up the tracks. It was Fred and the brakeman. Fred had a bottle and the brakeman a big grin on his face. They walked over to where I was sitting, and Fred flopped down next to me. Where's the boy? Asked the brakeman. Sleeping inside the shack, I said. Fred handed me the bottle, and I took a long pull off of it. He was up most of the night looking for us. And maybe a couple more poems here, and then we'll move on to China. This is called Dumpster Dinner, and I really love this poem because of the night that Steve and I were, I don't even remember where we were, I think southern Colorado. But we were in this jungle that, it was a fantasy jungle. There was some old tramp, he had a line in the water, he caught 2 beautiful brown trout. And there were these other tramps that were all getting food together, and they said, hey man, you go get some food, we'll cook up and have a big dinner. And said, okay, so Steve and I took off and got some stuff out of the dumpsters and brought it back, and we had a big, beautiful, wonderful dinner that night. So this is called Dumpster Dinner. First there are the greens. Always lots of greens and a few onions right on top. They're easy. Then dig a little deeper past loaves of turquoise bread and the smell of souring milk until you hit cheese. And look, there's more. 2 good tomatoes, a bunch of carrots, and a full bag of donuts. Now load what you can in a sack and beat it back to the jungle. The dumpster dinner cooks in the pale moonlight. The dumpster dinner steams with what you find. And any tramp will tell you, garbage always tastes better when cooked outside.